when we get married in Orthodoxy, we wear crowns, but the crowns are crowns of martyrdom. But that the fact that in marriage you're gonna daily self-denial for the sake of communion with the other person. The other reason we wear the crowns is that as the man, you are the king of your kingdom. You want to have your kingdom in order if you want the queen to come in.
Kyle, good to see you again. It's been about a year, I think, or a bit over a year.
Yeah, it has. It's been a lot has changed. I really enjoyed our past conversations and I'm excited to talk again about these important topics.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, since we last spoke, I was like, hey, we need to follow up with another conversation. And you're like, great, I'd really love to. And I just need to get married first. And so we're
Yeah.
a bit over a year down the line from, I think when you said you celebrated your wedding anniversary, when was it?
Yeah, May. Yeah,
May.
we talked in March of last year. I got married in May of last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we planned our wedding in a really short period of time, so it was just there was a lot going on. So,
Yeah.
but I'm glad we could talk again.
Right, yeah. Well, when you know what you want to do, then you can just go ahead and do it. I also proposed to my wife, and we had like brought her home. We had like a wedding ceremony. We were at a monastery when I proposed, and then we were married
Wow.
a month later, pretty much, or I think 5 weeks later.
Yeah,
So yeah, everything just fell into place. It was fantastic. So yeah, that was
it's
good.
amazing.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the topic that we want to talk about today. I'm looking forward to diving into it. I've been writing a book where marriage is actually one of the absolutely four central most points. It's one of the things that in the Orthodox faith, of course, this is the path to salvation. It is the central,
Mhm.
it's the central sacrament through your entire life that's going to
Yeah.
lead you to salvation. And I found that nothing has influenced me in a more powerful way. It's alongside monasticism, which is,
Hmm.
basically giving up, dying to the world, and dedicating your entire life to God, and or marriage, where you're also actually dying to yourself. You get crowned as a
Yeah,
martyr,
exactly.
and then die, right? So, yeah, how's that going, Kyle? How's it been landing in
It's
marriage?
It's been going really good. A lot of growth. And going into marriage, I knew about marriage intellectually, but like all things, especially related to the faith, it's another thing to actually be in it and to learn like in the moment and really live out your marriage.
Mhm,
And from a very young age, I had always been drawn to like marriage and relationships. I think when you're early in your childhood, a lot of us have a best friend, and to me, that was like the most valuable thing was having a best friend and your closest relationship. And I was also kind of a hopeless romantic. I loved romantic movies, and I mean, who doesn't want that to be like loved in a very special way that's different than any other relationship? And what happens is that people want all these things, especially as a kid. It's like who doesn't want true love, friendship, to live in an enchanted reality where everything has a meaning and a purpose. And as kids, we know this, I think, innately.
mhm,
We want a deep relationship with our father, our mother, our friends. We want to be loved in a special way because we were made for marriage. Man was made for woman and woman for man. Is we need each other to be joined into one. But
mhm,
I think what happens is that when you grow up, the world kind of beats you down, again and again. And that ideal of true love and friendship in this enchanted reality, basically, the cynicism comes and all of that becomes de-enchanted. And basically, you learn that that's all kind of like fairy tales. And I wasn't raised with a religion, but I think what happens is that a lot of people they lose their faith in love and friendship and marriage, but also God. They're like it's all fairy tales because they get so basically black pilled and cynical about the world. It's like everything's fake. These best friends that I used to have, they're not they're very superficial now. These things that I thought were true love, like all of that, it kind of shatters.
mhm,
But me not being raised Christian, one of the things that drew me to Christianity out of atheism was in Christianity that I saw that there's a vision for love, friendship, relationships, and marriage. And I saw that this was a very key aspect of Christianity. And if you read the Gospels, you see this is, what the gospel is all about is what is true love and what is like a true relationship. And it's, in John he says to lay down our lives for one another, and we do that in lots of different ways. But uh, what I saw coming from an atheist background is that in Christianity, it has this proper view of love where it's deep, selfless, it's willing to sacrifice even one's own life for another. So in in the world, I think we see that everything is very fake, but in Christianity, everything is very sincere and real, and especially in modern society, I think everyone is so embittered, lonely, friendless, relationshipless. Like even if you look at these studies about how many close friends did people have, even in the 90s and early 2000s, people had a lot more close friends, and so I
Yeah, I actually
think.
just looked it up. In like the 90s, it was average in Europe, I think it was average
Mhm,
three per man. People had three
yeah,
close friends. Today it's under one. It's under one per person. So
yeah.
actually there's more people that have no close friends than two or three.
Yeah. And so that's absolutely terrible.
Mhm.
And like relationships, love, friendship, marriages are all essential for like a really meaningful life. And that's really what Christianity is about. It's about a relationship. And I actually saw this funny meme. It says, no one mentions that one of the biggest miracles in the Bible was Jesus having 12 adult friends in his 30s. Is I mean, who wouldn't want to have that? I mean, 12 friends, like close friends
Yeah.
that are willing to
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 go to
die
death
for.
for each other.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, 11 out of the 12 apostles were martyred. And I mean, to me, that's the most sincere, real friendship is, is Jesus.
Mhm.
And so I think God could have saved us in a lot of ways, but we see through the Bible and Revelation that God chose a very special way to save us. And he saves us uh, through people. He worked through people. He could have done everything just by himself because he's, all powerful and all good. But what we see in the Bible, the Old and New Testament, is that he uses people and even himself, God humbling himself and becoming a man and living among us and making friends and transforming the lives of sinners, the lowest of the low in society, and helping them reconcile with each other. Like he turned, a tax collector and fisherman into some of the greatest men that ever lived. So I think this is what's one of the, foundations of Christianity is that it's about a relationship. It's about the power of friendship,
Mhm.
really, I think, and love and sacrifice. Because of course, the Jesus um, loved the apostles. The apostles loved him. And so this foundation that God isn't just some abstract being, but God is very personal to us. He wants
Mhm.
a personal relationship to us. He's not a just abstract essence. He's Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. God is love. And so love can only exist within a relationship.
Mhm.
And it makes sense that people's relationships are struggling not just in marriage but in society in general because we've lost this. We've lost Christian friendships. We've lost what it means to love. Is people have been disenchanted with all of this,
Mhm.
and the Gospels clearly show what our love in relationships are meant to be like. And one of the deepest relationships you can have is in marriage. And in fact, Jesus Christ is the bridegroom. He gives his life for the bride, the church. This is why St. Paul says, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself to her. So
Mhm.
this is very key that Christian relationships are the foundation to eventually a Christian marriage, to Christian life.
Yeah.
And this love isn't just like affection, but it's a sacrificial love of willing the good of the other, of denying yourself, and you're seeking the other's holiness and salvation. Today's society is so me focused, but Christianity is all about focusing on the other, the neighbor.
Yeah.
And what we see is that the church, the bride, responds to Christ with trust, devotion, and fidelity. And this is very clear in, the book of Revelation. This symbolism of marriage is very, very important. So marriage is not something arbitrary. It is something that is divinely revealed. And so I I knew a lot. I knew some of this. I didn't know all of this, and I had an experienced marriage, but before I was married.
Mhm.
But I had always kind of dreamed of getting married, especially when I was in high school, college, and I started really looking into Christianity. Is one of the things that attracted me to Christianity was just the view of marriage, of getting married, having lots of kids, glorifying God in your marriage. But I think,
Maybe I can just underline as well, like if you
mhm,
look in other major religions, there's very, very, very little there. It's very, very little. Like Islam is such a weak understanding of marriage. It's all just about the subjugation of the woman to the man, basically. That's what
exactly,
Islam is
yeah,
about. And the man having a place to channel his lusts so that when
yeah,
he then dies and goes to heaven, then he can have like hundreds of virgins that he can have sex with every single day or
yeah,
something like that. It's quite ridiculous. And then Buddhism is also totally empty about the subject. I mean, the Buddha himself actually left his wife and children to go sit under a tree and meditate. That's all he did. And so that's the model that Buddhists have today as well. And then they can
yeah,
interpret that in all kinds of different ways. But and a lot of young men actually in Buddhist societies go and live in a monastery for a couple of years and then they come out again and get married and whatever. But there's very little depth in the understanding as the Orthodox sacrament of marriage. And I really
yeah.
loved it that you brought up the personal aspect of it because the
Hmm.
love of God, as you said, it's not just this abstract thing. It's really
Hmm.
concrete and personal and individual transmission that came through Christ, into his apostles, and it's been passed down directly. And we can actually trace the lineage, right? We can trace how the sacrament has been kind of preserved and passed down through
Hmm.
2,000 years of history. And, we have that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt your train of thought.
No,
Wanted to add
that's
that in.
that's a great point to add, that is one thing that distinguishes Christianity from all these other worldviews, is we really have the proper view of marriage, and we acknowledge that it is a real path to holiness, and that we can learn more about God through marriage. And so I think that's a really great point. But what I think happens is that a lot of people are aware that marriage is this ideal, like this something that they really want and are thriving for.
Mhm.
But like me, when I was in high school, and I wanted this, I wanted to get married and to have kids. But the thing is that I wasn't ready for what it actually required.
Mhm.
I'm still not, because it's like theosis. I mean, it's constantly trying to be in communion with another person. Is that it is hard work, like you said. When we get married in Orthodoxy, we wear crowns. It's a beautiful service. But the crowns are crowns of martyrdom, not a blood martyrdom, but that the fact that in marriage you're gonna daily self-denial for the sake of communion with the other person, is constantly willing the good of the other person, and especially when you have children, that is very ascetical. It like all of this marriage, living for another, having kids is ascetical, and so that's why we wear the crowns of martyrdom. The other reason we wear the crowns is that as the man, you are the king of your kingdom. Is that this is where the origins of this is that actually your house is your kingdom. And so you want to have your kingdom in order if you want the queen to come in and have kids is you need to have your kingdom in order. And so your house is your castle, and that's why it's actually in English common law, it's actually considered a sovereign territory protected by law. That's why the cops have to get a
Get a
warrant
warrant.
or these things because you are going to be a king. And now when feminists or certain people hear that, oh, like you're a king, oh, you're going to be a tyrant and all of this. It's like, no, that's really bad and sinful if you are a tyrannical king.
Mhm.
Like because you are a king and you have so much power, you need to be a loving king. You need to die for your people, your for your queen, for your children,
Subjects,
the
yeah.
peasants. This is very key, is that it's selfless. It's not a power dynamic.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah.
Maybe Kyle, I can bring in a dynamic that I've noticed in young men, especially guys coming into the church these days. In
Mhm.
here where I am, and I think where you are as well, probably we're experiencing that there's like a lot of guys coming to the church, and a lot of these guys
Yeah.
are just fantastic young men, and they're absolutely great. And then a lot of them
Mhm.
are coming from being brought up in a society with very little guidance and exposure to some really harmful stuff.
Yeah.
And so, especially when it comes to sexuality, then I think it's a very, very small percentage, maybe non-existent, of men that aren't like introduced to pornography and
Yeah.
consume a lot of pornography. And there's some kind of rewiring on the brain coming in of
Yes.
that, and that's something that is a burden that men carry with them. And
Yes.
I've seen a lot of men who still struggle with that burden, and then I also seen some guys who've overcome it. And what
Mhm.
I've seen is that the guys who still struggle with that burden, they really struggle to understand and to cope with how to find a partner and just viewing women. I just finished reading a book. It's called From Object to Icon. It's about what he calls the pornographization of society, which I think
Mhm.
is really something very real and influences all of us. And then even for the guys who overcome it, then a lot of the time there's kind of like there can be a sense of moving from kind of what you call the sins of the left hand side over to
Mhm.
sins of the right, which is more pride orientated, thinking like,
Yeah.
oh, now I found the truth. I know what it is. I've defeated this. I'm
Yeah.
pure. I'm clean. And
Yeah.
then when they start looking at women, then they start getting very judgmental about, and maybe they've
Mhm.
consumed a lot of the kind of red pill content about, women
Yeah.
with their high body count and all these kind of different theories and whatever it is. And so there's can kind of like be a complaining of women when they don't then find a partner. Maybe they spend a year or two trying to date, trying to find women, and they're unable to find a partner. They can get bitter and judgmental
Yeah.
about women instead. And so what I see is that there's this risk of falling into, and this is where I think we can help each other as guys in the Orthodox Church, and especially young guys coming in, is
Mhm.
to be catching this as like the moment you're blaming women, just putting all women into one box and saying, oh yeah, woman this, woman that, then there's something really, really wrong there. And so you need to be very careful of this.
Yeah.
And that, like if you've truly repented from your sins and you're becoming that kind of man that can, be a king, a good king in his kingdom, that's
Yeah.
worthy of a queen,
Uh-huh.
then like there can be a woman, she can have all kinds of things in her past, but she can also repent. And so again,
Exactly.
very aware of this
Yeah.
prideful
I
judgment that comes in.
yeah, I think you hit on a lot of good points. Um, yeah, pornography, it is so damaging even once you've stopped, is like my brain is still affected. So if if you even if you're not married, stop now for the love of your future wife and for
Yeah,
and for the
especially, I
love
mean,
of
like the
God.
idea that you can like stop after you get married, that's a terrible idea. It's a terrible
Yeah.
idea. It's gonna be much harder.
Yeah,
Do it before. Like, otherwise you'll just get addicted to
exactly.
something else after, which will be more destructive. So, yeah.
Yeah, and what's so damaging too about the pornography is it has these very weird situations, and how your brain works is the more you do something, the neuroplasticity like grows, so it's just easier to relapse into it. I mean, when you say no to it, it does decrease, and it's easier to not fall into it. But if you've been watching it for like 10 years, it's gonna take a long time. It's like, yes, you're forgiven of your sin, but the damage of the sin is still there. Like, yes, God will forgive you, and that's why we should always repent as soon as we sin. But the physical damage, it still damages us. And I think I watched it pretty much like every day from what was it, like sixth or seventh grade until my freshman year of college. And
Mhm.
so that amount of time of just doing it, it has lasting effects. So please take it seriously now for the love of your future wife. But on that other topic that you're talking about how people who, men who have a past and then we come into the, some of them that come into the truth, they can be very judgmental. And this is definitely how I was coming into Christianity is I saw this degeneracy in the world and I'm like, oh, this, Christianity, it says this is sin. But what I didn't focus on, in which way, if you read the Orthodox saints, you see that they focus on the evil within themselves
Mhm.
because first of all, it keeps you humble. It's easy to say, condemn other people and their sins, but that's their battle. And so don't if someone has a sincere heart and they're repenting, like you can't don't hold their sins against them. Because you're going to be judged according to that standard that you're judging other people. It's like,
Yeah.
I hear
Often
this
the
a lot.
harshest judgments are stemming from a lack of
Mhm.
having actually really dealt with the root of the problem in our own heart. And so we
Yeah,
something like with our own willpower, maybe we were suppressing it and pushing it aside and avoiding it. But if the
yeah.
root's still there, then you're going to build up that pride and judging other people and distracting yourself from your own desire to be engaging in the same thing. And then at some point crisis is going to happen and you're going to get floored, right?
Yes.
That's my experience with myself, I got to say.
Exactly. Yeah. There's this kind of saying. It's like, you come into the church because of like, oh, all the evil everywhere else, but all these problems in the world, but you realize you
Hmm.
are the problem.
Hmm.
You are the problem because the only thing you can control in this life is yourself. And like a lot of these, guys, if they were going around and sleeping around and then, in their 30s or whatever, they're like, okay, now I'm gonna, take Christianity seriously. It's like they did a lot of damage to society. And so just keep yourself humble, focus on your own sins. That's a full-time job.
Hmm.
And especially within marriage, is that marriage is much deeper than any friendship you're gonna have. You're gonna spend more time with your spouse more than any other person in your life.
Hmm.
And you're gonna see each other's sins. And you're
Hmm.
gonna sin each other more than anyone else is like because you're with each other so much. Is you want really close communion. Is you're not gonna sin against a stranger that often because you don't see them. But
Hmm.
your wife, that's who you're probably gonna spend the most of your sins are gonna be against when
Hmm.
you're prideful in an argument. You're you get upset. You're being irritated. I mean, so it's a co-struggle in marriage. And as a
Yeah.
man, you don't want to burden your wife. And the reason you don't want to do that and why the relationship to a man to a woman in marriage is it's not like other friendships because you are providing for and taking care of your wife and your children. You don't want to put any burden on your wife. Is you
Yeah.
want to know,
I can add to that. I
yeah,
think like just the
yeah,
good way to see it for me that I've realized is like your sins or your love, they vibrate outwards and there's resonance. And so they grow as they vibrate outwards. And so
yeah,
anytime you're impatient or you're, inattentive or selfish or whatever it is, like it just grows as it goes out first to your wife, then to your children. And you rarely see it. It's very, very clear. So your family becomes a reflection of you. And so it's a very strong you can lose sight of it sometimes. You start blaming
yeah,
them, but the only thing you can do is
yes,
look at yourself. If you see sins and problems in your family, you just look at yourself as a man, right?
yeah,
You're the head of the
yes.
family.
Ex exactly. Like you're if you're blaming women, it's like you're the one who's supposed to be leading. It's
Mhm.
same with like on a societal level. We're like, oh, why are women this way and feminism? But it's like it's because of weak men, bad leadership. Is
Yeah, you
that
don't need all of women to follow you. You just need one. And so
yeah,
you start working on
yeah.
that, on just like becoming the man you should be. Then that woman she will come. That's what
Yeah,
I normally say to guys.
exactly. Because I mean, there's all these Bible verses like Wisdom of Sirach, one of my favorite books in the Bible. It talks about how a wife is a husband's richest treasure, a helpmate, a steadying column.
Yeah.
And I think all guys see this, but what we need to ask ourselves, and what I need to ask myself was, am I even ready for marriage in my current state?
Mhm.
Would the person I am asking for even want me in my current state? And this is where the preparation for marriage begins, is
Mhm.
being honest with yourself about that question. Is that imagine the perfect person, everything that you want comes in a person. Would she want you in your current state? And that's why the time to prepare for marriage is now, to be honest about your sins, about your values, about your
Mhm.
vision for yourself, for your marriage, your maturity level. Are you willing
Mhm.
to grow? Are you willing to deny yourself? It's one thing to say it, but then to actually do it in uh like an argument or disagreement, that's a totally different thing. Are you ready for what marriage requires? Um, this is what I really like Father Josiah Trenum's advice on this, where he says, make a list of quantities you want
Yeah.
in a spouse, and then turn it inward. That's what you need to become. Is you're going to attract what you are. So if you want this, if you want a very high standard of a partner, you need to be worthy of it too. And so I think one of the biggest problems I see in men dating and looking for marriage, and I'm speaking, from my experience, is definitely a lack of maturity in what marriage actually entails, because marriage is going to change you a lot.
Yeah.
And women, well, a good woman will mature a man, and she'll want a mature man, and there's very good reason for this. Women are very cautious, and they easily see red flags in men, because the man is going to lead the woman, and this man is going to raise your children and take care of you.
Mhm.
This woman is going to depend on you, because you literally have to be her head and she is a body. So of
Mhm.
course she's going to have proper discernment, and like if you show a red flag behavior, she's not just going to look past it. She knows that, like, especially like a virtuous woman who's not just looking to get married, but actually has some standards for herself, is you want someone with high standards,
Yeah.
who has high standards for themselves and their partner,
Mhm.
because again, that's going to be reflective in your marriage and in your children. Is it going to be lackadaisical, or uh, are you going to have something? Are you going to have a higher ideal? And
Yeah.
so that's why a man, like a woman who wants a man of good character, that he is safe, he is gentle, he is assertive, he is protective, and he can provide financially. All of this makes sense, and women shouldn't be shamed for wanting this.
Sorry for interrupting. I just want to take one moment to tell you about our online accountability groups. So, this is where men are gathering together to actually live according to the standards, the principles that they want to live by, of integrity and aiming towards a specific goal and then doing it. And the guys in these groups are supporting each other every single day with daily buddy calls. So, it's a really strong system for moving in the direction that you want to move with your life. So if that sounds like something for you, then check out the link below. Thanks. I'd say one of my deepest insights through my 6 years of marriage now,
Hmm.
but also through my life and all my relationships with women. I'm 45
Hmm.
years old. Is that women actually do test men, and they
Yeah,
test men
yeah,
to see
yeah, they
if they're
do.
doing
Yeah,
something to please them, or they're doing it because that's just the way they are, and that's this a firm principle that they stand on.
yeah,
And
that's a
and
really good
interesting
point.
enough, women are not at all interested in men doing things just to please them. Actually, in the short term it works,
Yeah,
but in the long term, it actually will grow to despise you
yeah,
if you just do stuff for women to. And I think this is really a woman testing, like, are you a man who knows who he is and where he stands, or are you going to submit to my drama, to my issues? I think some of this is conscious from women. I think a lot of it is unconscious. I think they just do it automatically. But it's been one of the
yeah,
greatest failures of my life, is that in early on, I just tried to make women happy. The woman that I was
yeah.
with, I just did whatever would make her happy. And actually, she wants a man who's going to lead her, not just to please her, right? You know
Yes.
what I mean? She wasn't a little lapdog. She wants a man who's going to go to war for her, and also to
Yeah,
protect her against herself and against yourself.
yeah.
And so that, I think, that's the vital thing. And so the insight that I've actually had in this is that I have to love my wife not for her sake, but for the sake of God, for the sake of
Mhm.
Christ. I love her because Christ loved me. Because then
Yeah,
Christ has to be the third person in my relationship. And he's the most important person in my relationship. If I just
Mhm.
am looking at my wife all the time and trying to make her happy, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fall short because I'm going to lose sight of God in my marriage. And so if I'm
Yeah.
looking at God instead alongside my wife and I'm leading her and guiding her towards God, then I'm going to step out of this thing because it can be very frustrating. And most men don't understand this actually. And so
Yeah.
I'm doing everything she wants. And she,
Yeah.
it's still
That
more drama all the time, right? And that's the reason. It's because they've become actually
yeah.
a people pleaser and a Mr. Nice Guy or something like that.
Yes, I could not agree more. That is so important that the man is actually leading and you're doing things out of principle
Mhm.
is it's going to be tiresome in the relationship if you're not actually having a real communion and you're just kind of mirroring what she wants. Is that's why you need to know who you are as a man and what your principles are and what you want because she's going to be very attracted to that is this is and not arbitrarily like I'm an authoritarian we have to do it my way but
Yeah.
these are my principles I do this because of this reasons speak the truth in love but yeah, women are going to, test you. Is women don't just want a people pleaser. I mean, men don't want a people pleaser. I mean, if you're
Right.
going to war, you don't want to just like men test each other. They
Yeah.
don't want someone who just goes with the flow and is trying to please people. They want
Yeah.
someone who is driven by their principles. And so women are very aware of this, and I like to think of women kind of as deer, because a man's job is to create a good, nice, safe environment where there's, principles, there's boundaries, where the deer can come in and go to sleep and feel safe. Now, if a man is not actually creating a safe environment and creating like a simulated safe environment, or says something immature or unhinged or shows weakness, which if you're not guided by your principles, you are showing weakness. The deer's gonna run away because it's like, oh, like this isn't safe. And so, if you're a man, you need to know how the women think, which means spending time around women to understand women, to know how to talk to women. Because you'll notice the more you talk to women, they talk about different things and in different ways when compared to men. Women tend to focus talking about people, about experience. Men like to focus on things a lot. Um,
Projects,
yeah,
achievements.
projects. Men love projects. Okay, what's the plan to do the project? And when a woman brings something that seems like a problem, often just listening is one of the best things you can do. Is as a man, you need to be a good listener. And I recommend if you're in the early stages of dating, after the date, write all the stuff down that she said so you can remember it and actually, keep it in your heart so you actually know about her. So again, there's you're discerning her too. So you want to take these notes, you want to know your principles, you want to write down these things about her.
Mhm.
And this attention to detail is really, really important. Is women really like it when you're a good listener and you remember details that you told them, and also when you give them very specific and meaningful compliments and very sincere. Again, a woman wants a sincere, principled person with a vision. And women don't always uh, have the same approach as men. As men, like you said, we're very project action oriented. We hear a problem, it's like, okay, how are we going to fix it? But women often, they just want someone to listen to them, to validate them, to show that they're actually. And again, doesn't mean just compromise and not sharing your values, but just being very sincere in with whatever she's going through and having a gentleness, caring about the little details, um,
Would
and
you
not,
say, would you agree, like
yeah,
you validate them on the things that are actually worthy of approval, but like some women are sometimes going to look for they might be in a conflict with their friend and they're looking for confirmation that the friend is wrong and they're right. And I'd say
yeah,
that's where as a man you need to be very careful,
mhm,
because you might
yeah,
just be perpetuating aspects that you're going to then have to deal with, and strengthening aspects that you're going to have to deal with. And you're kind of doing a bit of a deal with the devil if you
hmm
compromise on your values when you're giving her
yes.
validation, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's back to that the principles versus mimicking is you don't want to be a pushover or a rug. You're supposed to be a king, but
Mm.
you're supposed to be a loving king who listens to, your queen. And so listen, but and be honest. It doesn't mean you just, oh, whatever, I'm just gonna say whatever to please her. Don't do that. You're setting her up for failure. You're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
So just really keep that in mind. You need to really know your principles.
Yeah.
And a part of this is, I think one thing that kind of hinders men, definitely hindered me, is that if men are left on their own, or you're only talking to other men, you're not talking to women, men want war in politics and sports, revolution, their job. Men are more extreme, pretty much in every way. Is that I think there's been like IQ tests, and there's more men at the extremes of like really dumb men and really smart men.
Yeah,
And
pretty any
so,
metric you any almost any metric you measure men and women. Women are far more clustered in the middle, and men are
yeah,
much more spread out in a standard bell curve.
yeah. And men have so much power. They have the power to build and destroy society. They get caught in the ideal. That's why they like all these things because they're making a plan. It's project based.
Hmm.
Now, what a woman does is a woman brings a man into reality, and it's like, tone it down a little bit. Just be present and listen to my problems. Help take care of the house. Be intimate with me. And this isn't a compromise. Is like some people in the manosphere, black pilled. I saw there was this like wife jack meme, kind of like trying to disparage like wives. Oh, this is why you can't get married in the West. Is that mindset is very toxic to society because women were given to man to help us. This is what it says in Genesis 2. It is not good for the man to be alone. I will give him a helper suitable for him. So the woman is there to help you. And in what way? The woman is there to refine, to ground you so you don't go and kill yourself in a war or some idea, kill yourself at work. It's like, hey, what about, take care of me, take care of the kids, what about, God and the church and these things. And so it's like on both sides of the culture, we have, the manosphere and then, the embittered feminists that are saying, marriage is just patriarchal and they just want women to be slaves. It's all about power dynamics. Why am I the helper? Why am I not the head? Why am I not the main character? But and then the manosphere, they're kind of thinking in the same way that it's about power dynamics. And it's
Hmm.
like, why am I gonna live for this woman? Like,
Hmm.
well, she should live for me. But it's missing the point because man needs woman and woman needs man, and together they're one. They aren't complete until they have each other.
Hmm.
And of course, this needs to be, a righteous man and a righteous woman, because the righteous woman will bring refinement to man. And so this is why it's so key to get experience talking to women, because
Hmm.
again, when you find that girl who you're going to get married to, are you going to be ready? How are you going to talk to her? If you don't have any experience talking to women, you're not just going to be able to wing it and get it perfect. You need to know how women think. You need to love women and respect women and femininity, real femininity. And
Yeah.
you need to understand what a woman actually brings to the table. Um,
Yeah.
and again, this doesn't mean abandoning your values,
Yeah.
because a virtuous woman is going to strengthen your values. Is that like we were talking about with principles, is you don't want to be mimicking them. You want your principles to be aligned because the woman is going to strengthen those.
Yeah,
Is
I'd say
she
she does it implicitly. It just happens automatically because what I found getting married is that suddenly my actions they don't just affect myself, but
Yeah,
again
yeah.
they're kind of
Yes.
they're
Yes.
affecting other people very directly around me.
Uh-huh.
In fact, I have the responsibility for the salvation of my wife, for the salvation of my children.
Exactly.
And it's very clear,
Mhm.
like if I'm going off the rails, like they're definitely going to also go off the rails the other direction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just you just notice very very quickly like stepping off the road has massive consequences. And so if you're unable to like stop your porn habit right now, They're like, don't get married because you need to sort that out beforehand. It's going to have very
Yeah,
serious consequences. You're not suddenly, things aren't going to get easier when you have the responsibility for additional people. So you need to first, look out, learn to look after
exactly.
yourself before you can do it for other
Yeah,
people. And I just want to
yeah.
mention again, like, the content that you're consuming online. You
Hmm.
really need to be careful of that. And there's so much material outside of orthodoxy that's tailored for men, which just very subtly falls into this kind of like in very smart, clever ways, falls
Hmm.
into negativity,
Yeah,
judgmentalism, especially not appreciating women, as you mentioned.
yeah.
And I met a guy the other day who called himself an incel. And I just, as I spoke to this guy, I was just disgusted. I was really shocked at the dysfunction of adopting an identity where he felt like he had a right to somehow having sex with women, and that he was being taken that right away from him because of women and the way that they are, or something like that. And
Yeah.
so it was really disgusting. It was really, so I
I
say, anything
yeah.
that's in all anyway getting you thinking along this lines of like a woman this, woman that, it's really, really toxic, to your understanding and to your approach. And we really need to be careful. Seek out good brothers.
Yes.
Kyle, I think, I don't know. Maybe I always I had an easier time talking to women in my background. I found when
Hmm.
I meet guys who have struggling with women, I just say, like, first go sort out your relationships with guys, and then
Hmm.
things with women will fall more into place a lot quicker, because it's just so much easier to actually learn to love another man. You don't have
Yeah.
all of the kind of sexual games going on at all with guys, and then
Yeah.
we're just much more alike each other. So when you can look another guy in the eye and think like, "Hey, brother, like, thank you, I love you, like, I really love having you in my life." If
Yeah.
you can say that to another man, then you've taken the first little step towards being able to take it to a woman. The thing is, like, our relationship with women is, especially women I'm romantically inclined to. I'm gonna have all of this like testosterone and lust playing into it. Especially if you're
Yeah.
really looking for one to get married. You're very confused there. So learning to love men first, that's a good first step to take before you can
Yeah.
learn to love
I
women.
Yeah, I think tying it back into what I mentioned at the beginning is Christianity is about love and relationships. And so you need to learn how to, love your fellow man and have a relationship, how, have a best friend and cultivate that relationship. And that is going to transfer into your marriage. Um, but I think what you highlighted about, self-identifying as an incel, that you don't want to label yourself and put yourself into a box. And there's lots of guys who say, "Oh, I'm an incel, I'm autistic." It's like, don't say these things. These are red flags to women, and especially the incel think you're entitled to a woman. It's the same. It's like the flip side of the same coin of like the overweight feminist who thinks, "Oh, I deserve a man who's gonna love me the way I am." It's like, no, that's not the truth. The truth is you need to deny yourself. Both of those sides need to humble themselves, stop labeling yourself in that way, and deny yourself to become better. And it again, it all starts with putting God first. Because if you're putting God first, that ultimately that's I mean that's the point of life. But God wants for the most of us to get married unless you're a monastic. He wants you to get married. And so if you're really putting God first, you're not you should put to death the bitterness, the resentment, all of these things. Go and learn to love men, learn to be around women, and put yourself out there. Get out of your comfort zone. Help at your church. Go and volunteer. If you're in college, go and join some like charitable organization. Like you want to be in proximity of the type of women that you would ideally get married to, because eventually that's how you may meet her. And it normally is going to take time and experience, and you're going to get rejected a lot, and you may develop a strong crush. But remember, even if you get rejected, the experience is invaluable. um, Actually, I never really had a serious relationship before my wife. I had been on lots of dates, in middle school and high school, and and in college, being around women, working with women at a restaurant, I learned a lot about what I like in women and what I don't like. I didn't like someone who was very neurotic and shy and negative. And I like someone who's very positive, assertive, principled, more minimalist, Christian, good character. So it's just like the more women that you meet and talk to, you're going to get more comfortable talking to women and you're going to know what you actually want in a woman.
Mhm.
And
And trying not to focus so much on looks. Like it's
yeah,
so tough
yeah,
for us. Like, I bet it's like, the first year you're married, it might be really important for you if your wife is beautiful or not. But like, in a long time, it's the beauty of her heart that's going to attract you
yes,
far more than her physical looks. Like as guys, this is hard for us to do. But if you're struggling with that, I can just really encourage guys like, like her looks are not as important as they are for you, right? Or, very soon her looks will
yeah,
not be as important for you as you think they are right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, being having someone that you love being around because you love their personality, that is what's going to be with you the entire marriage. The
Yeah.
looks are going to fade away. And
Definitely.
yeah, and the other thing that I fell into was coming on too strong, love bombing, simping, and that can come from a place of, immaturity, lacking experience, desperation. Is you don't want to be desperate. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to show your full hand at the beginning. Like be strategic in
Okay.
in how you pursue women.
I'm going to take another approach, Kyle. What I
Hmm.
actually tell guys these days is go tell your priest that you're looking for a wife and ask
Hmm.
him who is the right wife. And then I would say actually don't date, but court.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
I actually
yes,
say
yeah.
like very
Mm.
formally make your intentions clear.
Yeah.
But then don't be. I fully agree. Don't love bomb and simp or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But I actually really think, and like, if your priest doesn't know anybody, then go to the next church and ask that priest, like, hey, I'm a young man, whatever, and you can check with my priest if you're interested, or go visit all the priests and all the churches in your nearby area. But for me, that the best place to find a wife is in your church.
Yeah.
And I think like you might as well just be open and honest about it. And then
Hmm.
be very principled, especially if you're, if you this only works if you're not desperate. If you're a man of principles, then
Yeah.
you get introduced to a woman
Yeah.
and say like, I'm looking for a wife, but I'm looking for the right wife. And then you negotiate with her and you find out who she is, and you test her as well. And that can lead you to make, then you're suddenly the one who's, not just desperate to get a partner somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah,
Mhm.
dating is a very modern thing, especially when people are like dating for, years
Years, yeah.
versus when I, research courting, it is very important. That's actually what I did with my wife is I first discerned like if we have a foundation for friendship in a short period of time because you don't want to have
Yeah,
a
it does
super
take
long
some time.
friendship. You want to be. It's all about a balance of you want to make your intentions clear. And so I made my intentions clear that I was courting her, that I'm interested in very serious, not just in dating,
Mhm.
but I have a vision for me, myself. I have a vision for her, and I want her to be a part of it.
Mhm.
This means that we talked about very, important things like how does married life look? How many kids do you want? Are you going
She
to
also
work?
wants to know what kind of lifestyle she's going to be living if she marries you,
Yeah,
right? Like, are you going to be traveling with work all the time? Do you want to be in the
yeah,
military? You just want to have a stay. You want to be a teacher. You have long holidays, short holidays. Like, those are
yeah,
important things for a woman to know if she's going to marry a guy. So you need to know who you are and where you're going in life. If you don't know
yeah,
those things, you're asking her basically to buy a ticket to a lottery, So you need to know exactly what kind of life you want to
yeah,
live so that she can
yeah.
decide, like, do I want to get onto this train or, am I going to wait for the next one?
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. And the courting process should be relatively short. Some people it's only, 3 months to 1 year. For me, it was about 2 months before we bought the ring.
Wow.
But we were spending a lot of time with
Yeah.
each other, like
Yeah.
going on a lot of
Yeah.
different dates and
Yeah.
talking about very serious things,
Yeah.
getting the ring, talking to our priest. We actually probably would have got married sooner, but it was Lent and you can't get married in Lent. But
Mhm.
honestly, that there was a lot of really important things that happened in that period. So I got married pretty much in six months.
Mm.
And so the reason why it should be short is that if there's systematic problems in that short period of time, they're probably not going to go away with longer time. Is whatever problems, they're probably going to persist. So don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. Especially don't waste a woman's time. Like if you're
Mm.
not serious and you don't have a vision and you're just kind of going with the flow, you're just with her because you don't want to be alone. That's selfish and wrong.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it should be very serious in courting, not dating. Yeah, that's a very important point.
Great.
And yeah,
So kind of, I'd say let's bring things to a close. I think
mhm,
I'll try and share kind of like some last thoughts. Give you the
yeah,
same this opportunity. You can finish up last.
hmm
Um, so I mentioned that I've been writing a book, actually focusing on the four key roles that every man, that are
hmm
basically blueprints or archetypes for all the relationships that he's in his life. It's being a son, being a brother, being a husband, and then being a father.
yeah,
And the thing that I wasn't expecting coming through this book, and especially came in this chapter on being a husband and marriage
hmm
and finding a wife and being in a marriage, I wasn't expecting it to be such a big topic, but it was really on our complete and utter dependence on God and our
yeah,
responsibility before God for all things. If we're not
hmm
seeking God's will in our life and seeking to submit ourselves first beyond God, then we're actually going to fail in all these kinds of things. I've been very
yeah,
successful in lots of things that I've done in my life as far as career and relationships and
hmm
gaining all kinds of things. And
hmm
and so it's very hard for me to do that actually. But it's
hmm
very, very clear the more I look at it is that like I actually need to be bringing prayer into every single part of my life
yeah,
every single day before I work, before I go to bed, before I have a meal, before I make a big decision, before I go to a meeting, and to be praying
hmm
to God. It's really hard. It's really tough for me to do it. I forget it all the time.
yes,
But it's just so important. I actually just read a quote from Saint Theophan the Recluse
hmm
before yesterday, and I thought, wow, this is perfect to conclude with because I was just amazed by the power of it as well. And so I'll,
yeah,
I'll read it up here. This is Saint
hmm
Theophan who he translated and rewrote a lot of this book called Unseen Warfare, which
hmm
is amazing book.
yeah,
So the quote is, prayer is the test of everything. Prayer is also the source of everything. Prayer is the driving force of everything. Prayer is also the director of everything. If
hmm
prayer is right, everything is right. For
wow,
prayer will not allow anything to go wrong. And so I
yeah,
think for any man like looking, finding his way in life, then prayer, that's absolutely
yeah.
as much as you can in everything you're doing. All of these things fall into place when we start praying with an open heart and with a truly seeking heart. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so interesting that us as Orthodox Christians, like I don't pray enough. It's like we have this huge, like the greatest thing, like the, creator of the universe who wants to listen to us. And I don't pray enough. And prayer has amazing effects. It's good for us to, focus on God. And it's like we can also ask our priest to do specific, prayers, like especially if we're traveling. Like I did a pretty long road trip and I'm like, let me ask my priest to, pray for me. But before, and it was just a small thing. But, on the road trip, I kind of messed up driving and almost got in a car accident. And like for some reason this, driver, it was fine. And I really think that it was because of that prayer. It's like these small things, these prayers can make a huge difference. So it's like tap into that prayer. Um, but there's also one last thing I wanted to add about like marriage and relationships, and these have become more clear to me over time. But it's really important to to know what a good friendship is like, and especially in marriage, there are things that can really kill and cause damage to your marriage. Which this one, I think, doctor named John Gottman said it's called the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and these four things. The first one's criticism in the sense of attacking your partner's character rather than addressing specific actions. Is don't do this. Is this really is toxic venom to a relationship, friendship, marriage? It is toxic. Is Don't go for someone's character. Address the actions. Or when you're building up resentment, it shouldn't be towards their character. It should be towards the actions that they did. The second one was contempt. When you're in a disagreement with, again, friends, marriage, mocking, eye rolling, sarcasm, name calling. This is actually the biggest predictor of a divorce because, again, there needs to be mutual respect in a relationship. You shouldn't do this with your friends, and you especially shouldn't do it with your wife.
You know what the
Uh,
number one reason is for what for people divorcing or arguing
mm,
it in general?
hmm
It's tone. They don't like the
Yeah,
other person's tone. That's why people
yeah.
money is the second, but the first one's actually tone.
Yeah, I bet. And as guys, we I think we generally have a louder tone. We're very intense, kind of direct. And
Mhm.
so it's like tempering that with gentleness, with self-awareness. It's very important. Also, another one of the horsemen is defensiveness. When you refuse to take responsibility, make excuses, and counterattacking. Again, terrible for friendships and relationships. And the last one is stonewalling. When you
Mhm.
withdraw from the interaction, you shut down emotionally or give the silent treatment. And now I think all of these are very orthodox because these are simply passions of pride, wrath, and lack of love in different outlets. And the antidote is humility, repentance, quick forgiveness, and remembering your spouse is a fellow heir in the kingdom. You don't want to view a friend or especially your spouse as an opponent. Um, and then one other thing I want to say is recently I watched a conversation with Father Josiah Trenum and Jonathan Pageau, two
Mhm.
married men, a lot wiser than me, but they did this video called "A Marriage: The Bedrock of
Bedrock of civilization.
Civilization," and I thought that video was very good. And they're actually doing a conference on marriage, so I think it's in October in like Riverside, California. So it's definitely something to consider if you're in the area. Um, and the last thing I would say
Wouldn't be a
is
bad place to meet a wife, right?
yeah, yeah, you've got again, be around like-minded people and that's how you're gonna, meet your partner. And men should talk to married men. Listen to married men. They have experience.
Mhm.
Talk to men who have the type of marriage that you want. Talk to married, your priest wife. Like I guess the type of marriage that you want or type of like relationship wife that you want, you need to talk to those similarly minded people. Another person I really like is Father Moses McPherson.
Mhm.
His sermons channel, his homilies are amazing, and he gives great
Yeah.
advice. And you can tell that he really loves and respects his wife and needs her. And I think he's a very masculine man, and just the way he talks about these, um, I think it's really great. So that's my last piece of advice. But I'm excited for the book. I think that's going to be really great.
Amen. Thanks very
Yeah.
much, Kyle. Great talking to you. And I'll put the link for your channel on the comments here. Anything else that you want to just slip in where people can find you or anything that you're working on right now that people should be aware of?
No, you can find me Orthodox Kyle on YouTube, and I have a channel called the Orthocast
Mhm.
where I interview converts to Orthodox Christianity and also why create all Orthodox stay in the faith.
Yeah.
I
My
actually
story's on there as well. I think
yeah,
we did
yeah,
that, right? Yeah.
yeah. I think in March 2024. So you can check out Paul's story. It was really great. And working on I'm just doing the same thing, doing the balance between a little bit of apologetics on these different religions and stuff, but also trying to give things that will help people in really understanding orthodoxy and living it. And yeah, I'm just trying to find that balance of that. But
Great.
thank you.
Praise God. Thanks, Kyle. Great to talk to you again.
Yep.
Yeah, God
Bye.
bless.